on this sunny Sunday afternoon.
Yes, I actually am loving the sun. It feels like this fall. I think fall is lots of times like that, but this fall is very rainy, and I literally feel like my moods are kind of affected by the weather.
No, totally. I feel like that is definitely a thing. And like I would say within like the last week or so the leaves have gotten so much more pretty, like brighter and stuff too.
Like, especially today, I think just like the contrast of the blue sky and the leaves is just gorgeous.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are very gorgeous as well.
Thank you. You too.
So we have our coffee here.
Cheers.
Cheers to a good time. So we have a very special topic for you guys.
And a very special book to show you. Oh, but you were going to say the topic first.
Yeah. So the title or the topic is boundaries in relationships. And we were kind of thinking that, like, I don't know, it seems like
Do,
boundaries...
do, do, do.
Drum roll, please.
We always should have like a noise on our video.
We actually partly want to, like, get music at the beginning.
We need to get a bit more technical, so if you guys have any advice for us, please send it our way.
Yeah, we almost need someone who's very good at that kind of thing to help us, but I would have to admit Nicole's better at, like, figuring that kind of thing out than me. It is not my thing.
It's kind of fun, but I also feel like there's other people that are more techy than me.
Yeah, we have our technical difficulties sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think what I was thinking about this topic is
Did you say? Oh yeah, you did say the
boundaries
name of it.
in relationships. And I was gonna say, is that your pen? Oh,
Yeah.
there's my pencil. I was gonna say that boundaries, it seems like it can be a really broad topic. Me and Nicole we're trying to think ahead of time, like, where do we want to go with this? Like, because boundaries can just really have so many different, like, dimensions or, like, areas or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you can think of, like, boundaries in dating, like physical, mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. Mm-hmm. And then you can think of boundaries, like, in relationships, like dating or marriage or friendships or family. And just, like, I guess we're just going to be doing a very broad topic today.
Yeah.
Boundaries within relationships. We'll probably kind of focus a bit on, like dating, and then also, like, just, like, any relationship.
Yeah, and maybe, like, later on we might, like, do a more, like, specific one, like maybe boundaries in dating or, like, boundaries in, like, guy-girl relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll see if we do that. For now, we're gonna just do a more broad topic
and see where the Lord leads.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually kind of our videos. We don't prepare a ton in advance. We kind of just, like, I don't know. We kind of like to write a few notes, but normally we kind of just give her in the moment a little bit.
That's kind of our way to go.
Our thing.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have a little quote?
Okay, if you have not read this book, Boundaries, and then I think there also is one on boundaries and dating, but I've never read that one. Have you?
Oh no, I kind of forgot there was.
Yeah, and I haven't read, like, the whole thing. I've just read little snippets out of this, but it is very good, so I would definitely recommend it, and I would like to really, like, read it through sometime.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to read a little quote from it that I really liked. So the chapter is called, What Does a Boundary Look Like? So, boundaries define us. They define what is me and what is not me. A boundary shows me where I end and someone else begins, leading me to a sense of ownership. Knowing what I am to own and take responsibility for gives me freedom.
That is good.
So, yeah, I don't think I'll read any more of that. So I really like that because, like, it totally just, that's so, like, I feel like that's such a good way of describing a boundary, because it is honestly like, okay, what is actually on my page and what is actually on someone else's page.
Yes.
Like, you literally have to really figure that out, because I think people who live a boundaryless life are just taking a bunch of things on from other people's lives. They feel responsible for other people, and they don't know what is theirs. So that's like the line here. Like, you need to know what is on your page, what is your, like, I guess from this thing, like, what is your ownership? Does that make sense?
Yeah, what is yours to own, or like your responsibility?
What's your
maybe?
responsibility, and what is someone else's? So I just, like, yeah, I think this really describes it really good.
Okay, I love what you're saying, and I feel like as you're talking, it's even making me think even a bit about like codependency. Because I feel like I don't know a lot about codependency. There's like books out there about it, but or you
I
might
have the
even
book. I just bought the book Codependent No More. Or I bought it pretty recently. I looked into it a little bit. I haven't read the whole thing. And, like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I might have some aspects of being codependent. But I'm not sure. Like, it's kind of confusing to know for sure, like, if you do or not.
Yeah, no, I feel like codependency still confuses me a bit. I feel like you might even know more about it. But I think what I was saying about it is, like, with codependency, isn't it almost easy to get on someone else's page and almost like want to like control them, or you're just like so intermingled in their like
I almost wish if we were talking about codependent that we'd have looked a bit more into it, because I feel like it always is confusing. But, like, I think what you're saying is right. Like, I think how it works is that, yeah, like, you always want to control the other person, and you're, like, so, like, it's almost like, yeah, like, the line is, like, so, like, it's not very, like, vivid, like, what is yours and what is theirs, because you're just, like, so, like, codependent on them. You're so, you almost, like, I think it's even, like, when you take responsibility for their happiness and stuff.
And it feels
like you carry things that isn't yours. So I wonder if, like, codependency and boundaries do kind of intermingle a bit.
Yeah. So if we would want to like talk more about codependency, we could even like research it a bit and talk about that on another video. I just kind of wanted to bring it in because I think when you are codependent, it might be that you're not like having very good boundaries with a person, or like with your kind of like you're not putting good boundaries around yourself.
No, totally. And I think there definitely is like similarities between being codependent and not having boundaries. I think they're similar because I think people that are codependent can often be kind of like, I think they can tend to be more people pleasers. And like, I think people that have a hard time setting up boundaries would also be people pleasers too.
Yeah.
Or oftentimes.
Yeah. And like, speaking of people pleasing, I feel like me and Nicole have talked that like we both feel like we're like people pleasers, and I like personally talking about myself, I feel like I'm like literally like I feel like I'm on a journey of like figuring out how to set up boundaries with people. I also feel like my counselor actually has been really good with that. I don't know, just kind of helping me see that like I have a voice, that like my presence matters, like I matter as a person. And yeah, just kind of like when I just really, because I think for so long in my life I've just kind of like live life, and I'm just like wanting to please people, I'm wanting to like make people happy, and I never want to cause conflict. Like I just always want to be kind of like the good person, or just like yeah, just kind of like not cause conflict, not like ruffle people's feathers.
We love it.
I feel like I never use that word. But yeah, I feel like just like learning, just like within this past year, I've been like, yeah, my counselor has just been really helping me with the boundaries. And I feel like I'm like seriously feel like I'm on a journey. But I think people pleasing is like one way that like people have such a hard time setting up boundaries. And guess what? The other thing I've been hearing about people pleasing is that I think it's actually more of a selfish thing. Like, we always think, like, people pleasing, it's like you're almost like pleasing the person, but it's actually a selfish thing, because when you're people pleasing, it's because you don't want people to get annoyed at you. It's like, it's almost like a selfish thing.
No, I actually think I've heard, or that reminds me of like my one mentor. I don't have her anymore, but I think she had brought that up too about how like because I think she would say she would be like a people pleaser, but like, and she would always like kind of pride herself in being like so like kind or just like that, like yeah, that it's kind of a good thing. But I think she like kind of has been learning that some of it actually is selfish, or even like a way of like kind of protecting herself or making herself look good.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even always that she's doing it out of the kindness of her own heart. Yeah, that's actually so good.
That actually is totally the thing. It's kind of crazy to think about that.
Because like I think looking on, those type of people can look like really like good people, because it's like, yeah, they're just like always making people happy, and like they look like a nice person, but like sometimes it actually can be from like, it can be from a selfish place in your heart.
Yeah, no, it's so crazy. And yeah, even just like going back to what I was saying about like setting up boundaries, I feel like I feel like boundaries, I kind of forget. I kind of felt like I went on this like all this and got a bit distracted by the people pleasing, that I'm almost forgetting where I was trying to go with it.
Yeah.
With the whole boundary thing. But I think what I was basically trying to say, that I think just like this past year I'm like really learning. And I think just like in this area of like setting up boundaries, I think like a big thing is to just like, rather than be really hard on yourself when you don't set up a boundary, really celebrate yourself and really congratulate yourself on the times you do set up a boundary. Because I think us as humans, it's so easy to be so hard on ourselves, to think like, oh my goodness, like I just gave in and I didn't like stick with my boundary and all this stuff. And then we don't celebrate the times that we actually do really good with setting up a boundary. And so I think just like, yeah, just really like celebrating yourself, or celebrating sounds funny, but just like really
like celebrating the little wins.
Yeah. So I think just really, just really celebrating the little wins, and, yeah, I don't even know exactly where I was going with that anymore. But.
Yeah, no, that's actually really good, because it feels like you can like, like you can be hard on yourself, or maybe like set like too, like you're like, okay, I want to work on like my people pleasing, or I want to work on like setting up boundaries, but then you almost like can tend to, or at least I do this, and I think it's a human tendency to sometimes set like unrealistic expectations for yourself. But if anything, it's better to like do like set small goals, and like you do baby steps, and like celebrate the little wins. That's actually something that I've been really learning for myself, that I can just like set such high expectations for myself, and then I just, when I don't meet those, and it's like they're such unrealistic expectations that like it makes sense I don't meet them, but then I like am so hard on myself, and I'm like, oh, I just like failed, or I think of myself as like a failure. Whereas I need to set realistic expectations. I think I've even heard like almost set them really small, and then like, yeah, like set them, if anything, set them even maybe a lot smaller than you think you would even need to. And then you can like feel good about yourself.
Yeah, like almost like baby steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like it's so easy to set these high expectations that we're never going to meet.
Yeah.
And just like, yeah, I think that is just like, even what I've been like learning this past year, just like really, and I think my counselors really helped me see like, you should be like, she's helped point out to me that like you really did like set up that boundary and stick with your boundary. Like she really helped me like celebrate myself, or just celebrate the little wins. So I think she helped me with like even seeing like that it's like small steps. It isn't like you're just like, it's not like you're suddenly just gonna be at the other end like this perfectly able to set up boundaries. Like, you are gonna fail, like humans are gonna fail, And that's
it's
just
not
all part
even-
of life.
And it's not even failing. Like, I don't even like to think of the word failing
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think anything is really failing. It feels like you, I mean, like you might not do it right, but it's like everything is like a process. It takes time.
Mhm.
And like, I don't even like the word failing
Yeah.
or like a failure.
Yeah, no, totally. I don't like that either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. Did you have
Mhm.
anything else that...
Well, I was trying to think, did we want to get more into like even how a boundary can look, or yeah, I think one little question I have here is, how do you set up boundaries so that you can live fully alive? And, or I guess kind of like added into that is also like, how can you set up boundaries so that you can live out of your true God self? And I just feel like with setting boundaries, sometimes it's just like so easy to think like, it's almost like, I don't know, is it almost even like a cultural thing, or even like a Mennonite or Christian culture, just like go, do all this stuff, like help all these people. Maybe this even just like ties into even self-care, even taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But just like, it's so easy to just like always say yes, like just like, it's so hard to say no, and it almost can be looked at as like better if you say yes,
Yes.
or rather than no. But
Yeah.
actually, if you think about it, like saying no, if you say no to one thing, then you can be like 100% in the next thing that, like, if you, let's just say there's 2 different events that you can choose from, like, in a week. If you decide to do both of them, you might only be able to be 50% of yourself at the events. But if you decide to do one of them, then you can probably be 100% there in that event because you took the time to like say no and to take care of yourself, like the other time, when the other event was going.
No,
whatever.
totally. That is seriously so good. Yeah, and this reminds me that I think I can be such a people pleaser too. Like in
Mhm.
like, or I think for me, my personality, it's like I want to like say yes to everything because I want people to like me. Like, so let's say for like, or randomly, I feel like me and you are probably like in different instances. Like, I wonder if there's certain instances you have a harder time setting up boundaries and I find it easier.
Mm-hmm.
But I for sure feel like in different friendships, like if a friend brings up this idea to me, I seriously find it so hard to say something like, oh, I'm not sure if that's for sure gonna work, or like I'm not sure if I'm into that. And so like my worst thing is that I act like I'm into it in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and then later I find it easier to just like message and say like, oh, I actually don't know if that's gonna work now. And then like if anything, I feel like that's worse because sometimes I can like agree to something and then it maybe like might even offend or hurt the person more because I wasn't honest with them right at the beginning.
And almost like might look like you're backing out or whatever.
Yeah, it might look like I'm not like sticking to my word, or like I'm
even though all along you're almost kind of leaning towards not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is like the worst thing for me, and I need to get better at, and I think it does go down with like maybe people pleasing or my personality, just really wanting to be liked. I want people to like me, so I want to just like kind of like act really into everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think it is like kind of like the kind thing to do is actually like say no right away, or to like set up your boundary right away rather than like almost like lead the person on or something that it's like gonna work for you. It's better to say no right away, and I actually can
Or get their hopes up.
yeah, and I can relate to that too. And so I think probably all of us, especially as people pleasers, can like do better in that area. I think another thing I wanted to bring up is that boundaries can seem, I think one reason we have a hard time setting up boundaries is because boundaries can seem mean. It can seem like you're being mean to set up a boundary. At least that's how I feel personally. Like when I'm setting up a boundary, it feels mean, especially because some boundaries actually, like, some boundaries you set up, the person actually might be offended, or they might be hurt, and it might feel mean to them in the moment. Like, it's not actually. So, I'm trying to think how to explain this. It's not like it's actually mean, but it feels mean because sometimes people don't like your boundaries, and I think that's why it's so hard to set up boundaries. Because I have a little thing written down here. Um, Sometimes the people who push your boundaries the most are the ones who need your boundaries the most. And they might not like the boundary, but maybe it's exactly what they need in their life in order to, like, thrive or, like, grow as a person. Even if it might feel mean to them in the moment, even if they might be really offended and really hurt, I feel like in the long run, setting up those necessary boundaries that you need to set up as a person in order for you to be, like, okay mentally, and, like, in order for you to be, like, mentally and emotionally and spiritually at a good place, sometimes you need to set up those boundaries, and that's exactly what you need, and that's exactly what the other person needs, even if it doesn't feel like that's what they need in the moment. I think it can be, like, the best thing for both of you guys, and it isn't mean. It actually is, like, the best thing for both of you guys. Like, yeah, and I feel like we're not really giving examples of boundaries, but I think you can kind of.
Yeah. Well, as you're saying this, that's so good, and I'm thinking of, like, this reminds me of, maybe, like, I could even give, like, a little example. Like, let's say, with, like, as a parent, you, like, seriously need to have, like, certain, like, boundaries for your kids, or certain rules, kind
Yeah.
of, for them.
Yeah, or
But I feel
like perimeters or whatever.
yeah. But I feel like nowadays some parents just, like, let their kids do anything. And then kids are just growing up thinking, like, they don't know what boundaries are, so then they're just like, then they just, like, are really pushy and just, like, push other people's boundaries because they don't know what boundaries even are, and they don't know how to set up boundaries for other people, and they don't know how to respect boundaries when other people, like, try to set them up or whatever. And so, like, I'm just thinking how, like, let's just say, like, a parent just keeps allowing a certain behavior, then the kid learns, okay, I'm gonna just get away with this behavior because there's no consequence.
Yeah.
But then that kid just grows up and they don't even understand what, like, a consequence is. So it's almost like the parents are just, like, I was trying to think of the word before we started this video and I can't think of it. But it's almost like they're just, like, encouraging that behavior, or aiding that behavior.
Yeah.
And, like, but what the parent really needs to do, it can look mean, but, like, if anything, sometimes it's necessary for the parent and for the kid, like what you're saying. Because if the parent sets up that boundary, then the kid is going to learn that, like, there are consequences to certain behaviors, but if not, they're not going to learn that.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And I think even as you're saying that, that reminds me, even out of, I really love this book from Lisa Turquoise, or Turkers.
I never know how to say it, but I wonder if it is more like Turkers.
Yeah. So it's called You're Going to Make It, and it's like a morning and evening devotional. I love it. It is, like, she is, like, one of my favorite writers, and I'm very inspired by her. So yeah, check out the book if you would like. I think one thing she says, she talks about boundaries, I think, like, in some of her books and podcasts and stuff. So here she says, remember, a boundary without a real consequence will never be taken seriously. So that reminds me so much of what you're saying. That, like, if the kid doesn't have a consequence, then they're not going to respect the boundary.
Yeah. No, totally. And it just feels like you can maybe do that with, like, a parent can do that with a child, or, like, even, like, maybe you can, like, like maybe a family, like maybe there's one sibling, like maybe like everyone in the family just kind of like allow, like it's almost like that person just like runs over you or something. And like it can feel mean, but maybe the best thing is to like set up like a boundary so that person knows that like once they cross this line they'll have to figure it out on their own. Or,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. That's really good. Yeah. Well, is there anything?
Well, I was gonna just say something unless you were wanting to.
No, I actually don't feel like I have a ton more that I was wanting to talk about.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say one thing. I feel like this is like we're probably gonna stop here pretty soon, but this is kind of changing like the topic a little bit, or like kind of going a bit of a different direction. But I feel like another thing is that the topic of like boundaries in like relationships, and specifically like relationships with guys and girls, and like just like that friendship before like you start dating, kind of like the ages like before you're dating.
Yeah.
I just feel like there is so many boundaries that can be crossed in really like unhealthy ways. And like I feel like I have learned so much through the different ways where I cross those boundaries, and in the long run I ended up hurting myself more through it. And so I feel really passionate about just like talking about this because I feel like I've learned so much about it. And like one way I feel like I crossed it would be within like messaging guys and like more like emotional boundaries. I feel like I would like get too like talk too deeply, or like get too emotionally involved with guys that I wasn't even dating. And like this kind of even reminds me a little bit of like back to our topic about like guarding your heart, because it feels like I just like crossed so many emotional boundaries that like I just have a lot of like regrets from that, because I feel like those boundaries that I crossed should only have been done in like maybe more of like a dating relationship or even in marriage. And so it kind of feels like sad, but I also feel like I learned so much through it. And yeah, like I just feel like somehow I just like totally lost my train of thought. But
it is fine.
Yeah, somehow I just feel like it kind of like kind of from like learning through that. What I was gonna say is that I feel like through that, like crossing those boundaries, I really feel like I like kind of like caused more hurt on myself, and like got more like heartbroken, because if I would have like set up better boundaries, then I wouldn't have like had so much hurt and wouldn't have been so like heartbroken in certain times.
Yes, that is so good. It's crazy how much this can almost relate to regarding the heart, guarding your heart topic that we had done.
Yeah. No, I feel like some of these topics really can kind of like intersect a little bit. But yeah, that was one thing I wanted to bring up. I feel like we might not get like a lot into this, but maybe at some point we could like talk more on like boundaries within like guy-girl relationships and stuff.
Like even before you're dating, when you're dating, like kind of like romantic relationships and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Or was there anything else you wanted to say?
I don't. Are you saying before we wrap up here?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe one thing I was wanting to say is that kind of I think Lisa Turkers kind of brought this up in her book, that like it's good to bring up the boundary in a kind and respectful way. And just like knowing that they might not like it, they might react to it, but if you have like a strong why behind your boundary, then it seems like then you're gonna stick with it even if they don't like it or whatever. And then also allow them to ask questions about your boundary. I feel like that's one thing that I almost feel like I could do better with. I think even just like sometimes I'm like I'm so not used to bringing up boundaries that I almost feel like I bring them up in kind of like almost like a mean way, or it feels like I don't know how to bring them up, so then it almost comes across kind of blunt or kind of mean. That I feel like I really can work on bringing up boundaries in a kind, respectful way, and also allowing them to ask questions. I feel like that was really good for me to hear because it's okay. Like if you have a boundary, they should be able to ask you questions about it before you like follow through with the boundary. But yeah, I think that's basically all I wanted to say.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's really good.
Did you want to close this with prayer?
Sure. Dear God, thank you so much for this beautiful day. Thank you for the beautiful fall weather and the beautiful fall leaves that seem like they really have gotten to their peak in the last few days here. And I really want to thank you so much for each of these ladies, each person, Jesus, who is watching on the other end. Thank you so much for who you made them to be, and thank you that they are here today with us, and that they have chose to really follow you and to be here with us today. And thank you so much for their heart and for for just who they are. And I just really want to pray specifically for each of them in their lives. I don't know where they're at, how it is for them with in their relationships, with setting up boundaries. But I just really pray that you would be extra near them, that you would give them wisdom, that they would be able to find good information and good tools to learn how to set up good boundaries with the people in their life, because this is just such an important aspect of having healthy, good relationships in your life, Jesus. And I just pray that if they are someone who has a hard time with boundaries, that maybe they feel like it's selfish, that they feel like it's mean, but that they could learn the truth about it, and that the truth would really set them free in this. And so, yeah, I just really pray for each person. I pray that you'd be extra near them with whatever they are going through right now, and that they would feel your peace, they would feel your strength, and your they would feel your presence with them right now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. We love you guys.
Love you.